I am reading a story today. It's from my super lore of Pennsylvania, Ghosts, Monsters, and Miracles. Now, this story is called The Lost Children of the Allegheny. The strange story took place in the Allegheny Mountain of Pennsylvania. During a late April snowfall in 1856, the Cox family lived in the forest of Spruce Hollow, where Samuel Cox provided for them by hunting. His wife, Susanna, took care of the house and the three lovely children. The family seemed content with their life in the mountains until things took a terrible turn one April morning. The Cox family was sitting down to a delicious breakfast made by Susanna when Samuel heard rustling outside, followed by his hunting dog barking. Immediately he grabbed his rifle, ran to the door, went outside to see what animal the dog has treed. While Samuel was in a hurry to see what his dog had caught, Susanna and her small son Joseph, age 5, and George, age 6, stayed behind and finished their breakfast. Hello, Vicky. Thanks for stopping in. After they were done eating, Susanna gathered their dirty dishes and began to do their daily house chores while caring for their 2-year-old daughter. Preoccupied with other things, Susanna lost track of her boys, and they wandered out of the house and into the woods. It is thought they went out to follow their father. Several hours passed. Samuel was still outside hunting, unable to find what his dog was barking at. Susanna remained busy with household chores. When Samuel returned to the family cabin, he and Susanna realized that their boys were missing. Susanna thought that maybe the boys were helping their dad, but Samuel had no idea that they had even left the cabin to begin with. Extreme panic set in. The parents ran into the woods, searching everywhere and everywhere for Joseph and George. More time passed, and Samuel and Susanna soon realized that their boys were gone. The sun was beginning to set on the cold April day, and Samuel desperately wanted to find his boys before nightfall because he was afraid of what wilderness held for them after dark. Samuel knew that with the bitter cold weather, he would need all the assistance he could find to help look for the boys. Words about the missing boys spread quickly, and people from all over came to help Samuel and Susanna look for their sons. Immediate neighbors, as well as people from Bedford, Blair, and Cambridge County, joined the search. Surprisingly, in the days that followed, people from as far as Pittsburgh heard the news and traveled to Spruce Hollow to search for the missing boys. Almost 2 weeks went by, and thousands of people had gathered to the area of Blue Knob to scour the countryside. They searched all of the woods surrounding the Cox cabin in hopes of finding the boys before it was too late. As time passed with no success, searchers became disheartened and rumors about the missing boys began to spread. Some felt that Joseph and George were murdered by their parents, killed by the man-eating beast, or drowned. In desperation, some of the men thought that they were seeking supernatural help from the local witch, Moll Wampler. Moll Wampler lived alone in the mountains, and the locals rarely associate with her because she was perceived as being evil and associating with the devil. However, some of the men thought it was a good idea to have Maul Wampler help because she could use her Erdspiegel, which literally translates from German into English as Earth Mirror. The Erdspiegel was an instrument that Molly used to look into the past, present, and future, and the search hoped that she would be able to use it to help find Joseph and George. Others felt it was a bad idea to involve her in the search because her practice were that of the devil. Despite their hesitation, some of the searchers decided to pay Molly Wampler a visit. Hi, Mike. Ah, you scared me. I haven't seen you in a while. Where you been hiding out at? When the men arrived at the witch's house, knocked on the door, she told them to enter in an irritated tone. She then removed the Erdspiegel from her bosom, where it was stored for safekeeping, and placed it in the bottom of a black bag. She then proceeded to glare over the bag. Eventually, she said she saw the children. In order to confirm that she indeed did see the children, she described them and what she saw, the witch said. The vision seen by Maul and her Erzspiegel seemed to put some of the missing pieces together and gave the men hope that they could possibly find the missing boys. Maul Wampler told the men exactly where the Erzspiegel showed her the boys would be, but sadly the men were unable to find them at that location. They were forced to carry on with their search without magical help. At this point, the searchers were becoming irritable and losing hope that they would ever find a trace of George or Joseph. One of them, a young farmer by the name of Jacob Divert, was so worked up about the missing boys that he began to have dreams about them. Oh, can't hear no speaker. Learn to read lips. Divert was a man who was known. He had the same horrifying but realistic dreams about missing boys. Jacob dreamed that he was out searching for the boys when he saw a dead deer. He walked past the dead deer and found the little boy's shoe. I've been good. I had my back surgery, so I feel much better. He continued to walk a little further until he came to a little creek. He followed he followed it upstream for a while and saw an old tree standing in the water. As he walked to the tree, he noticed that bodies of Joseph and George Cox curled up in the roots of the tree. Jacob was so disturbed by the dream that at first he only told his wife, but he soon knew that he had to take action. They decided that it was best to tell Jacob's brother-in-law, Harrison Wysong, who was from Pavia and was very familiar with the area in which the boys went missing. At first, when Jacob approached Harrison, he told him about the dream. Harrison was hesitant and skeptical, but he agreed to help Jacob look for the boys. Harrison knew exactly where Jacob was talking about in his dream, and on May 8, 1856, the two men began their hunt for George and Joseph Cox. Harrison took Jacob to the exact place he described in his dream. and soon it became all too real. Shortly after they entered the woods, they found a deer carcass, then a little boy's shoe. After walking a ways down, they crossed. They came across a creek, followed it upstream, where they eventually saw a large old tree standing. Both Harris and Jacob stood in pure shock and feared as to what lies ahead. Now I lost my place. They stared at the tree for a period of time until they gathered enough nerve to walk closer. As they walked closer to the tree, the two men could see the roots. The two small bodies of the boys huddled together, as if frozen from fear, and trying to keep each other warm. It is it is believed that the boys were dead for 4 days before they were found. The night that Jacob had his first dream, Harrison and Jacob were in disbelief as to what had just happened, but they knew they had to immediately return the boys to their parents in Spruce Hollow. Church and school bells tolled in Pavia and the surrounding areas once the boys' bodies were found. Different and Wysong were soon seen as heroes to many, but others questioned the men as to how they knew exactly where the boys' bodies were. Some wonder if it is all possible that Jacob Dever murdered the little Cox boys and left them in the blistering cold to die. A few days after George and Joseph's bodies were found, a funeral was held in a little church in Spruce Hollow. They were laid to rest in a single grave in the cemetery behind the church. 50 years after the Cox boys' bodies were found, a monument was erected in remembrance of their tragic deaths. The monument is located in the exact spot where the boys were discovered. The tale of the lost children of the Allegheny is a great tragedy that affects the people of Pavia and the surrounding areas. The monument is a constant reminder of how the people were touched by such an unfortunate and mysterious incident that continues to perplex those who read about the boys who went missing on the cold and snowy April morning in 1856. That was a pretty good story. Okay. Hello, thank you for stopping in. Yeah, it's been a long time. We took a break because of the damn bullying and Yeah, fully in, and I had my back surgery, so I said, I'm just gonna take a break. So, how you been, Vicky? Busy? It's too hot to do anything. Well, that's a short one. Okay, another story. The Lake Erie sea serpent. 200 years of sighting. At least 20 states are home to report lake monsters. Pennsylvania is one of those rare states that boasts not one but two creatures. The cryptid supposedly inhabiting Greystone Lake in Huntington County generally considers a hoax perpetrated by clever marketing minds in South Bay Bessie. An elusive serpent first spotted in the early years of the 19th century. Unlike Scotland's Loch Ness, Lake Erie is far too young to shelter a prehistoric water giant left over from the dinosaur days. Initially formed 20,000 years ago, Lake Erie has only been stabilized landmass for the last third of its existence. Stretching 240 miles in length, Lake Erie is most longer than the Nessie's home in Scotland, PA. No, Scotland, but it's just 62 feet was a far more shallow average depth. Yet, while its size and age may be limited, there are no such constraints of this magnitude of the tales reported by Lake Erie's boaters, tourists, and residents. According to C.S. Raffensweek in his dissertation of water snakes, sea and sea serpents. The first mention of the monster in Lake Erie came in 1817. On July 3rd of that year, the crew of the schooner reported seeing a creature 35 to 40 feet long and a foot around. It was so dark mahogany in color that it almost appeared black. No details were offered by the witnesses with regards to the presence of scales, so it is unclear whether the creature was of a snake or fish variety. In 1854, fishermen of the eastern side of the lake reported a serpent form moving about the water with great agility like the early monsters. This was the estimate at nearly 40 feet in length. 7 years later, another party of fishermen in the same region of Lake Erie came too close to a 16-foot serpent that were able to fully inspect. They described the thing as a greenish with an erect head and tail. In 1887, the Dussio brothers, returning from a day of fishing, spotted a phosphorescent mass on the beach. They quickly made their way to the shore, only to find the creature in its death throes. Although somewhat like a sturgeon in size, the brothers said the creature possessed arms that is wait a minute also possessed arms that is threw wildly from side to side. They ran for help and rope to capture the creature, but upon their return found only marks of the beach indicating where it was laying. Apparently, while tossing itself about, the creature tumbled back into the water and was carried off by the waves. Before disappearing, however, the sea creature cast off scales the size of silver dollars. Lake Erie sea serpent was particularly active in 1890. Two fishermen spotted a 25-foot long creature in May of 1892. An estimated 18 inches in diameter, the huge water snake propelled itself using flippers located across about 5 feet behind its large flat head. It was black with brown, mottled spots. In the fall of this same year, schooner's captain Patrick Wood was making his way from Buffalo to Toledo when, about a half mile in front of him, he saw it otherwise calm water of the lake violently whip into foam. As he neared the spot, he saw a huge sea serpent desperately fighting off an evasive underwater attacker. Wood said he could clearly see the sparkling eyes of the large head. He estimated the brown body to be at least 50 feet long, nearly 4 feet in diameter, with a head rising 4 feet out of the water. In 1894, on the New York shore of Lake Erie, a creature was reported by a witness seemingly beyond approach. Reverend Alex Watt of the Silver Creek Baptist Church. Watt and his wife and a friend were enjoying sunset from the beach when they then saw a churning commotion in the water about half a mile from where they stood. A serpent roaring through the lake at a great speed, turning the waves to foam. Watt calculated the portion of the beast rising and falling along the waterline to be at least 18 feet in length. He describes well, he describes things along its back, but said only 3 or 4 are visible during each undulation. Its head, said Watt, was heavier and darker than its body. I, w- I would not want to be in the water in a small boat if that creature decided to turn hostile. Watts assured that the newspaper reporter. The hoax penetrated in the early 1930s, had residents around Lake Erie briefing fearing an invasion of pythons. As it turned out, Clifford Wilson, a man who captured the python, brought it ashore, was a carnival promoter hoping to cash in on the lake monsters phenomenon. It was in the fact that his only 18-foot long Indian python, he claimed it to have hit with an oar and then wrestled it into his rowboat. Just 3 years after Wilson's trickery was uncovered, however, the man named Ben A. Swartz and 5 of his friends were sitting on the lake shore when they saw what they initially believed to be a dog swimming toward them. It was not until the creature changed directions that Swartz realized that he was looking at a gigantic snake, at least 20 feet in length. The beast swam along the shoreline for about 15 minutes before heading out into the deeper water. Experts to whom the incident was reported suggested the animal might have been an attack rock python, and an African native known for eating prey as large as deer. Sightings continue in spurts. In the early 1990s, when stories of Loch Ness were achieving worldwide media attention, Lake Erie sea monster also made frequent appearances. In September 1990, encounters received wide press coverage. On the occasion, a family named Bricker claimed to clearly see from the remarkable distance of more than 3 football fields, a black creature about 35 feet in length. It held its snake-like head erected above the waterline. As it travels to a speed reported equaling that of the family's boat. Following the attention received by the Burkers story, several other witnesses swore they too saw the creature. One claimant was a Huron firefighter. Another was the owner of a lakeshore cottage. A newspaper editor established a toll-free number dedicated to report the sightings of the Lake Erie sea serpent. While an enterprising marina owner offered a $5,000 reward to anyone who captures the South Bay Bessie alive. He even wanted to go as far as to post the optimistic sign on his gate that read, "Future home of the Lake Erie sea serpent." As of yet, no one had captured Bessie. In fact, she has been severely dormant in the last 2 decades. Still, no one is ruling out the possibility of a lake monster completely. As long as the humans entertain even the slightest chance, the mystical beasts of the watery depths may exist. Visitors to Lake Erie will scan its surface with more than ordinary delinquent. Okay, I suppose I'm gonna get off here. I didn't do too good, but there's some stories people can sit and listen to if they want. I'm gonna get off here. I'm gonna get something to eat and then I'm gonna go take a nap. I'm gonna try to do another live later on today. You all have a good day. Stay cool.